Hi Crafty Friends, this is Jen from Katahdin Crafts and welcome back to my YouTube channel today. Today I am so excited to be collaborating with my friend Marla Harris from Mad About Cards and Crafts. We decided to pull out some of our Hello Bluebird stamps and dies and craft together. We were talking one day and we both realized that we had a pretty large stash of Hello Bluebird stamps and dies that were just kind of sitting here, and we love the company, and so we thought, well, we really need to dig those out and come up with some creations. So we are supporting each other with that, about using our stash rather than just keeping it on the shelves. I don't know about all of you, but I can certainly shop faster than I can craft. So Marla and I together are going to try to work on that and do some crafty stuff with our stash throughout this next year, and I am super excited about that collaboration. Okay, getting into my project today, my favorite way to create a card is to combine many different stamp sets together to create a cute little scene. So this is no different. I'm using Krafty Friends, but I'm only using that little tree trunk from that set. And then Deck the Halls, I use several different things from there, like the fox and the presents and the wreath. And then Merry Mice, I used a couple of the different mice and that cute little ladder. And I do have most of the coordinating dies that go with these sets. And in Oh Christmas Tree, I used the fox and both of those birds up on the top and the candy cane as well. And there's just, I love those little sentiments that are there too. They're nice and fine. And for my main part of the die cut today, I used the treehouse and then the add-on that is the treehouse holiday. So I went ahead and die cut out all of the pieces, and then I also stamped out my images and cut those out with the coordinating dies. So I have everything ready to go because this is very color intensive today. And so I'm going to start right in with that. And I am going to speed this up because it is very color intensive, but you can always slow it down or pause it and check out the caps that I have on the screen for you to see. And for my card today, I chose to cut out all of my dies on a heavyweight cardstock that is Copic marker friendly. And this way I can get any color that I want and add some of those details, but you can very well cut these out on colored cardstock as well. I could have just used some brown, but this way I can control my coloring and I can add a little bit of texture. I just prefer to do it this way quite often. So I am going to add a little bit of a darker brown around the edges of the door and on the window frames, and that's just going to give that a little bit more dimension. And then I'm also going to try to make the tree kind of look like bark, like tree bark. So I'm going to just add those lines randomly throughout there, a couple of knots in the wood just for some texture and just to make it a little bit more realistic. I've decided that this is a semi-night scene. It's not full night yet, but it's dusk, let's say. So I am going to backlight those little windows. And how I'm going to do that is just scribble on some Y17 yellow Copic marker onto some scrap pieces of paper. Cut those out, and then I'm just going to adhere them behind the tree, behind the windows. And now I can assemble all of those little window frames that came with the die set. And all these little dies that come with this set help dress it up and help give it a finished look. It goes around those frames and it just gives it a little bit of extra dimension again and just gives it that finishing touch, just like you were building a house and needed to put your trim work on. So now I'm going to work on the little Christmas lights, which I absolutely find this fun. I love anything that I can do in color on these Christmas lights, and you'll see that a lot in my cards because I like to color these little Christmas lights. Just like to pick several bright colors and all the typical Christmas light color, the shades, yellow, orange, red, blue, and purple. And I don't do the green, which sometimes I do, but in this particular one, because there's so much green in the cord. And now I'm going to work on those little stone pathways. At this point, I didn't know how many of these I was going to use or need, so I just went ahead and colored up a bunch. I'm showing you the first 3 that I did, and I do all the rest of them the same. And I'm just blending some warm grays on there to give it a little bit of a three-dimensional look. And now we're going to go on to all of our coloring of these little critters and the ladder. And again, I have all of my caps for you on the screen. This is very color intensive, but this is the type of card that I find the most pleasure and joy out of making. I love to Copic marker color and blend and create these little scenes. And I also like this part of the video when we can just kind of chat. So you can watch me color. That's why I speed it up, because if I didn't, you would be here for probably an hour, if not longer, with me. So, but anyway, so I speed this up, and this is my opportunity to be able to say hello to everybody and see how everybody's doing. We went and got our Christmas tree today. Our tradition is we go just a little bit away from the house, and there's a Christmas tree farm, and we cut down our tree. I do have a daughter that will be 18. My oldest one will be 18 this year, so well, actually 18 next year, but in February. So this is our last time having all of them as children, technically. But, you know, not really. They're going to always be my babies, right? Right? Yeah. And before I forget, I'm going to tell my little story about my little critters. They all went shopping together for their scarves, or either that, maybe one of them bought all of them for each other for an early Christmas present. But they're all striped little scarves, and I figured maybe they went to Old Navy together or something. I don't know. But that's what I was thinking. And I always come up with these little scenarios and these little stories when I'm making and building my card scenes. And that's what I kept on thinking, is like, oh, they all went to Old Navy. And I have no idea why. Am I the only one? Am I the only one that does that? I hope not. I hope everybody comes up with a little bit of a story. It's our imaginations, right? We have to keep using those. And in my personal opinion, I believe that, of course, creative people have the most extensive or expansive imagination, right? So, when we finally went to go get our Christmas tree today, my kids are trying to tell me that they believe that we're the last ones to get our tree. I don't think so. It's only December 4th. We cannot be the last ones to get our tree. But then they went through the whole list of people that already have it and already have it up. We've just been busy. They all play basketball, and it's just a busy month, the month of December. Isn't it? Isn't it for everybody? And then this year I'm trying to get a good hold of my Christmas shopping, because I keep hearing that the supply chain is suffering. So I'm making sure that I get that all done relatively early. But anyway, so I would love some comments and some chat back to let me know what everybody thinks about some of my little quirky questions and how everybody's doing getting ready for the holidays and getting their tree up. And as you can see, I am coloring in all these cute little ornaments and presents, and I'm using bright colors for all of that because I just wanted this to be a bright, fun, cheery card. If you didn't notice, the Treehouse die does come with a frame. When you cut that out, it has a frame all around it. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to coordinate it perfectly with the red that I used, which is R27. I'm just going to use my chisel end and color that in. Now I'm going to set all of those pieces aside, and I'm going to work on my background. This is a 5.5 by 4.25 piece of cardstock, and I'm going to use tumbled glass, chipped sapphire, and seedless preserves to make that dusky looking sky. I wanted it to still be a little bit bright, but still have that hint that darkness was coming, so the lights would be soon shining. Again, I do think of little scenes or little stories behind my scenes. And I'm just going to blend this in. This is on Nina Solar White cardstock. And I just added a little bit of that seedless preserves, and then I'm going to blend that back in with the tumbled glass. And this is why I love oxide inks, is because I love to layer and layer until I get the effect that I want. And you can see that I pushed this a little bit too hard and broke my poor brush. Yeah, I was using a little bit too much elbow grease, I'm afraid. And I think that I do that with all of my blending backgrounds, and I really don't have to press that hard. So I'm not really sure, but I've been, after that incident, I've been trying to not use such a heavy hand of pressing. And really, once you get that first layer of the oxide ink laid down, it really just glides on top afterwards, and that's why you can get such a nice blend. So next we have to make our snowy hills. And this season so far I have just been cutting out my own snowy hills and it's been working out just fine. So I just used my large scissors, cut out some hilly kind of white cardstock, and then I'm going to hit that with just a little bit of the ink brushes. I'm not even putting any extra ink. It's just what's left on those brushes in the same color because of course the snow would be reflecting the sky. And on that first hill, I'm just going to add glue to the bottom half. That way, if I wanted to slide anything under it, I still had that option. The second snowy hill, I do slide right under that first one, and I glue this one down fully because I knew I wasn't going to plan on sliding anything underneath that section. And I'm just testing where the tree is going to land on the top, and then I'm just going to cut off that excess hanging, and now I'm going to glue down that frame. Now when I put this down, I realized that it didn't fit quite perfectly onto my card base. So what I'm going to do is just trim that down later when it dries. So no biggie. I just took my large scissors again and trimmed off the edge. Now I'm going to add in all of our little elements. It's time to create and build up our scene. Now most of the time I have like a rough draft in my mind of how I want it to look or where I'm going to put my placement, but then it kind of creates itself as I go. Now I decided that that ladder needed to not be white in between the rungs. So I just built up some of that same brown from the tree. And if I really wanted to be really picky and technical, I probably should have done like half sky under there, but I was okay with how that looked. And you can see here is when I'm going to trim off those edges. And it didn't have to be perfect because I kind of put my scissors right underneath that lip and just trim down the edge. I'm going to have this little mouse be working on the lights, and the birds are going to be up there in the tree in the top, but of course they're flying in with some help. And then this little guy was going to be hanging the wreath, and that wreath has that white section in the middle, and I wanted that to blend in better. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the brown again for the tree, and then I thought that that was going to be right behind that window, so some yellow would be shining through some of that light. So I'm going to add that, and now we have to add our little cobblestones, and I just kind of fit those into a pattern that I felt looked nice. And then we have to add our little fox on top of those. He's standing on the cobblestone walkway hanging that wreath because, you know, everybody here, all the critters are together and they're helping out to decorate for the holidays. And then this little mouse, he needed to be standing up there. I'm not really quite sure what he's doing, but he's going to hold a candy cane and just be merry and happy. How about that? And then our little birds, one of them has a little ornament and the other one has some lights. And there's his little candy cane. He needed to be doing something or holding something, so that's what I decided. I thought that that looked cute. Maybe he's just observing and having a little break and eating his candy cane. I do love watching a scene unfold and come to life, and I wanted him to be in the forefront, so I popped him up a little bit so you could tell that the fox was behind him. And I didn't like that empty space right next to the tree behind the mouse on the ladder, so I went and pulled out one of those little bunnies that is also in these sets, and I colored this up as well with some cute pink cheeks and ears, and then just some very light gray. And then of course he went to Old Navy too, or he or she, so she's got to have that striped scarf as well. And of course she's got to be helping, and so she's holding some of those cute little lights. And now I just like to fill in some of those blank spaces, and I'm going to fill in some presents and some ornaments and just get a lot more color onto those. And then I'm using a jelly roll in silver just for the tops of those little ornaments to make it look like the little silver hangers that are on those. And then for some added detail, I'm using my white gel pen and just adding a little shine spot to each of the lights. And I did do the critter's eyes, and that does sometimes work, but I didn't really like it with these. I think that the eyes were just a little bit too small, so I'm going to go back in with a black pen, and I'm going to fix those up a little bit. And now I'm using my Stella, my clear Stella. I think I used this in probably 90% of my cards. So if this Jennifer was making a favorites list, a Wink of Stella clear pen would certainly be on it. And I'm just going to make all those scarves shine and the Christmas lights and ornaments and presents. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment on the inside of my card. And I thought from our home to yours would be perfect for this. Now I'm going to attach my card panel to my card base, which again is 4¼ by 5½, and that is the standard A2 size. Another thing that I did not show on video is that I splattered over the whole entire scene. Now, I normally don't do that, but I wanted it to be a snowy scene, a snowy day. So I put this in my splatter box and I used a brush with some acetate and some liquid Stardust from Lawn Fawn and some white picket distress paint. And I mixed those together and I just lightly splattered all over the whole scene so everybody looks like they're a little bit snow covered, and that sky has a little bit more interest to it. And I did spritz, I kind of covered up my critters and I did a little spritzing in that background sky as well. So you can see that right here, that gives that snowy look. So it's lightly snowing as they're decorating outside. Thank you all so much for crafting with me today. Now make sure that you go over and see Marla at Mad About Cards and Crafts and see what she came up with for today's creation using the Hello Bluebird stamps. We'll have all of her stuff linked below so you can easily find her and go show her some love. Again, I'm excited that this is going to be a regular collaboration, just to show support and get out some of the stuff that is collecting dust on our shelves and to spread some inspiration to all of you. So take care, and if you haven't subscribed, please click that button below. I'd really appreciate your support. Thanks everybody, happy crafting, and I will see you again soon.